guys, welcome back to my channel. As you can see, I'm in my kitchen today wearing my trusty apron, and like I said in one of my recent videos, this channel is just becoming whatever the heck I feel like doing. It's not just makeup anymore, it's parody songs, and now it's cooking. So today I am going to make the best pizza all-purpose red sauce that you have ever had, and it's easy. So the ingredients are salt, pepper, olive oil. I will explain why there are two. Onion, I like vidalia. You can certainly use a yellow onion if you like. We have a can of Italian style diced tomatoes and a can of whole peeled tomatoes. Garlic, sugar, I know it sounds weird, I will explain. Red wine, fresh basil, dried oregano, and optionally dried red pepper flakes. Okay, so I'm going to start with our garlic. I'm going to get these nice and smashed. Just taking the side of your knife and literally smashing it down with the foot of your hand. Now these, I'm not going to cut these too terribly small because I don't want them to burn. Just kind of a rough chop through these cloves. Okay, so next I'm going to get into my vidalia onion. Like I said, you can certainly use a yellow onion if you prefer. I'm going to use about half or 2/3 of this and get it into a nice dice. Oh my God. Truth be told, guys, I am so terrible at cutting onions. I cry so hard every time. It's gonna mess up all this nice makeup that I put on. Literally, a tear. Oh my God. I'm turning the camera back off. I'm gonna get through this. Oh my God. Okay, wow, I barely got through that. But here are my onions. My garlic is in here too. So the next thing I'm going to do is get them into a pan with some olive oil. Okay, so I've got this pan on about medium, maybe a touch lower heat. I mentioned earlier I had two different olive oils. What I'm gonna do to cook the vegetables is this light olive oil. It just has a higher burning temperature. I'm just putting a couple of tablespoons in there. And you don't really need the fruitiness and the higher expectation that it might burn when you're cooking vegetables. So I'm gonna go ahead and put my onions and garlic right in. And you'll notice that I'm not using a particularly large pot because this is not a particularly big recipe, although it is very easy for you to double or triple if you would want to. In with my onion and garlic, I'm going to put some salt and freshly ground black pepper. I use kosher salt, which is great for cooking, and nice freshly ground black pepper. I'm going to let these go ahead and caramelize until they're cooked down and translucent. I'll just lower this heat a little bit as well. All right. These are cooking away nicely. And while I'm letting them finish cooking, I'm gonna get going on some other ingredients. So one thing I can do while I'm cooking up the garlic and onion is to open my can up, and this is the Italian style diced tomatoes. You don't have to use Italian style if you don't want them or you don't have them, and you can adjust the seasoning on your own, but this happens to have basil, garlic, and oregano. No salt added, but you know, perfectly appropriate for a sauce like this. So we're gonna drain them, and these are gonna be used later, but I'm just gonna get them ready and draining while we're cooking up our garlic and onions and getting them nice and yummy and translucent. All right, these smell really good. The Italian style, they really smell and look delicious. So we'll put these off to the side to use later. Another ingredient that we will be needing shortly is fresh basil. So I'm just gonna take 5 or 6 leaves. These are pretty big. I'm just gonna do 5. And I'm gonna cut them into a nice chiffonade. That's actually 4. Let's do one more. Fresh basil is really just a wonderful, wonderful ingredient for this sauce. We're gonna put it in a couple different ways actually. So if you don't know how to do a nice chiffonade on basil, and really actually the cutting for at this stage in the sauce doesn't matter, but I like to do this. You roll it up and then you have a nice little kind of firm little package to work with, and then just slice it across like this. And then what you have is these nice little strands. So we're actually going to be putting that into our pot in just a few minutes here. All right, so our onions and garlic are really starting to look nice. I'm going to go ahead and put in a couple of other ingredients. I'm going to just put a couple shakes of oregano in with them, just about like that. And crushed red pepper flakes are optional. I'm just going to put in a little bit. My husband would probably prefer that I even do more, but I don't like the sauce super spicy, but it just gives a tiny bit. So I literally put like maybe 15 little flakes in there. But that's totally optional. Feel free to add this or not. And we'll get these stirring around. And this is really coming together nicely and starting to smell delicious. I'm just going to turn it down, and we are going to go and open our can of whole peeled tomatoes for the next step. All right, so once you've got your garlic and onions cooked down a little bit, looking translucent, you've added your oregano and red pepper flakes if you want, and let those kind of saute for a few minutes. Open up your 28-ounce can of whole peeled tomatoes and put it all right in. Get the heat going back up a little bit, about to medium. You can also use San Marzano tomatoes if you have those. They add a really lovely fresh flavor to this sauce. I don't happen to have any, so any whole peeled tomatoes are totally fine. I'm just gonna kind of mash these up a little bit with my spatula here, or wooden spoon, or whatever you have, just so they can cook down a little bit. This is starting to look absolutely lovely. Just kind of give them a little cut in half or smash them just a bit. And this really isn't, it's not crucial to get them sauce-like at this point, because we're actually going to end up putting all of this in the blender, or immersion blender if you have one, in a while after they kind of cook down. So I'm going to put this now on kind of medium to medium low. Let this cook. So the 5 or 6 leaves of basil that we sliced earlier, put them right in, mix this up, and start to let this cook. Next, I'm going to put in my red wine. This happens to be a Barbera. Really, whatever you like and whatever you drink and what you have on hand is totally fine. I'm going to put in about 1/4 to 1/2 cup. This adds a really nice flavor to the sauce, particularly, because we're going to let this really cook down now. And it's really going to add some richness and sweetness when the wine cooks down. And you can. All right, guys, so I am letting the sauce now kind of simmer and cook down a little bit. I'm gonna let it do that for about a half an hour, checking in with it occasionally. I have it on medium right now, and it is getting up to like a semi-boil. So once it does that, and I'm gonna give it a little stir actually while I chat with you. Giving it a little stir, I'm gonna put it down now to medium low, and let it go ahead and do its magic for about a half an hour, coming back and stirring it occasionally. And then we're really in the final stretch. So while we're waiting for the sauce to cook down a little bit, I just wanted to share, and I don't know if this is the same for many of you, but I've really actually gotten into cooking during this COVID quarantine time. It has not really been good for my waist measurement, but has been good for my taste buds and my husband's taste buds, who has really enjoyed things like this sauce. So what we also do is make homemade pizza. Now, admittedly, I buy the dough because you can get really good frozen or refrigerated dough from your local grocery store. We've gotten ours from Giant that we go to. Anyway, I'm sure there's like, you can find dough. But then we've been experimenting with different pizzas, making this sauce. I actually made sauce 2 different ways and found that I really liked this way better. I probably could make my own dough because I figured out how to make bread, and I had never worked with yeast before, which is sometimes intimidating. But I would love to know the kinds of things that you've made during quarantine, and if you're like me and you've been cooking more, eating more. Yeah, you don't have to tell me if you've been eating more, but it's okay. You'll get back on track eventually. That's what I tell myself. All right, time for a little check-in on our sauce. We're about 10 minutes in, and you can already see it's starting to thicken up a little bit. It is smelling amazing in here. I do have the heat pretty much evenly between low and medium, so solid medium low. It has been bubbling pretty well the whole time, but it's on a low enough temperature that it is not burning, and you'd be able to tell if it's burning on the bottom if you feel the resistance, of course, of burned char on the bottom of your pan when you stir it, or you'll often hear like a sudden like bubbly sound that indicates you're probably on too high of a heat. But you want to just have that nice little bubble that we've got going here. And what I didn't say before is you definitely want to cook this with the lid off, because we do want it to cook down. We want it to release this steam. You can see there's steam and it's evaporating, so that it starts to get thicker, and it helps all the flavors kind of come together as well. All right, so our sauce has been cooking down for actually almost 40 minutes, which is totally fine. Totally fine. It looks amazing. Just one thing before we move on to that. I am sorry that somehow for the first portion of that video, I had no idea that I had onion on my face right there for like a lot of time. So I feel stupid, but I can't start over at this point, and yeah. So there's that. It's fun being me. All right, look at this. Our sauce has really thickened down over the last 40 minutes. It is chunky, which we're gonna smooth out. But I mean, really cooked down. The flavors have now all come together, and I'm gonna blend this baby up. Yep, just a quick blend. And we'll get it right back in our pot now. Okay, so I've got my nicely blended sauce back on the burner. It is really looking nice. So I've got it just on low. The next thing you're gonna think is weird, but this is my 1/4 cup of sugar. Now, like I said, You're probably going to use between 1/8 of a cup and this 1/4 cup of sugar. So I'm just going to put about half of that in to start. This is just to take some of that acid out of the sauce, and it will obviously make it sweet, and I do like a sweeter sauce. You could skip this, you know, if you want, but I think it really just makes it, I don't know, next level somehow. Give it a little taste. Yeah, that's really nice. So I did use probably about 1/8 of a cup in that case. You can do more or less if you want. Now I'm gonna throw in literally just a bunch of basil. Whoops, oh dear. I'll put that one aside. I probably have about 10 leaves, maybe 9 now. You can shred them or you can cut them if you want, but I like to get a big leaf occasionally. This one's super big, so maybe do that. But I like to get a nice big wilty leaf in my sauce occasionally. And we're gonna let this cook just a little more. Put it back up to kind of medium low. It could and will certainly reduce a little bit more if you want it even thicker. But to me, it's looking like, let me let you see this. It's looking like a really nice consistency to me. And we've got all that nice basil in there. So it's looking beautiful. Now what I'm going to do, remember we had our diced canned tomatoes. I'm going to throw those in now. I've let them thoroughly drain because at this point we don't want to be adding any additional moisture to the sauce. We've just worked so hard to get it to thicken and evaporate, and we don't want to now add more liquid back in, which would need to kind of re-evaporate off. Oh, and of course, I don't want to forget our final ingredient, which is a little drizzle of extra virgin olive oil. I put in maybe a tablespoon or 2, and this just gives it kind of a nice fruity finish. So this is why I was saying earlier that you don't need to cook in this olive oil. This is, you know, an extra virgin is more of a flavoring oil for salad dressing or putting on top of final dishes. So let me give it a final taste. You know, I can taste a little bit of that oil. It's amazing. It makes a difference. I'm gonna do a little more. You can do whatever you want here. But this sauce is really lovely. And I hope that you've enjoyed making it with me. So I really want to thank you so much for spending some time with me and indulging me by watching me make this video about how to make sauce, which I just made it up out of thin air a couple weeks ago. So I hope you enjoy it. I like to play with food and figure stuff out and make some pizza. Maybe I'll do a video on that too. But I hope that you've enjoyed learning about my favorite sauce and that you like it too. Bye guys.